Welcome back to Global Interview Institute. If you're here, you're serious about landing that assistant principal position. In Part 1, we covered the foundational questions. Today, we're diving into 15 advanced scenarios that will truly set you apart from other candidates. These questions test your critical thinking, leadership philosophy, and practical problem-solving abilities. So let's jump right in. Question 1. How would you handle a situation where a veteran teacher consistently refuses to implement new instructional strategies? Sample answer. This requires balancing respect for experience with the need for growth. First, I'd schedule a private conversation to understand their perspective. Often resistance stems from fear, past negative experiences, or feeling undervalued. I'd acknowledge their expertise and years of successful teaching, then explore their specific concerns about the new strategies. Rather than mandating immediate full implementation, I'd propose a collaborative approach. Perhaps they could pilot one small aspect and share feedback, or partner with a colleague who's successfully implementing the strategies. I'd offer additional support like peer observations, co-planning sessions, or attending training together. If resistance continues, I'd document conversations and clearly communicate that while I value their experience, professional growth is non-negotiable. I'd set specific, measurable expectations with timelines and support structures. Throughout, I'd maintain professionalism and focus on student outcomes. Sometimes veteran teachers become powerful advocates once they see strategies working. The key is patience, respect, and persistence while maintaining high expectations for all staff members. When you subscribe, like, and share this video, you're not just improving your career, you're changing lives. A portion of our proceeds supports vulnerable children worldwide. Act now. Be part of something meaningful. Now, let's move on to our second interview question. Question 2. Describe how you would lead the school through a crisis situation, such as a lockdown or natural disaster. Sample answer. Crisis leadership requires preparation, clear communication, and calm decision-making. Prior to any crisis, I'd ensure our emergency procedures are current, practiced regularly, and understood by all stakeholders. During a crisis, my immediate priorities would be: 1. Ensure immediate safety following established protocols. 2. Communicate clearly with staff through our predetermined channels. 3. Coordinate with law enforcement and district office. 4. Manage information flow to prevent panic while keeping stakeholders informed. I'd establish a command center with designated roles for key staff. Post-crisis, I'd prioritize psychological safety by arranging counseling services and allowing space for processing. I'd conduct a thorough debrief with staff to identify improvements, update procedures based on lessons learned, and communicate transparently with families about steps taken to enhance safety. I'd also recognize staff members who showed exceptional leadership during the crisis. Throughout, I'd model calm leadership while taking decisive action. Regular drills and clear procedures create muscle memory that allows effective response under pressure. The goal is making safety procedures so routine that they become automatic when needed most. Question 3. How would you address equity issues within the school, particularly achievement gaps between different student groups? Sample answer. Addressing equity requires honest examination of our practices and systemic changes. I'd start by disaggregating all data by subgroups: race, socioeconomic status, English learner status, and special education to identify specific gaps. Then I'd lead courageous conversations with staff about implicit bias and how our practices might inadvertently perpetuate inequities. I'd audit our advanced course enrollment, discipline data, and resource allocation for disproportionality. Based on findings, I'd implement targeted interventions, culturally responsive teaching, professional development, equitable grading practices, and increased access to rigorous coursework for underrepresented students. I'd establish mentorship programs connecting successful students from similar backgrounds with struggling students. For resource equity, I'd ensure our neediest students have the best teachers and additional support. I'd engage families from underrepresented groups as partners, conducting meetings in their preferred languages and at convenient times. Progress monitoring would include both quantitative data and qualitative feedback from affected communities. This isn't about lowering standards but removing barriers and providing necessary support for all students to meet high expectations. True equity means giving each student what they need to succeed, not treating everyone identically. Question 4. What's your approach to teacher evaluations and how would you help underperforming teachers improve? Sample answer. I view evaluations as growth opportunities, not gotcha moments. My approach emphasizes ongoing feedback rather than isolated observations. I'd conduct frequent, brief classroom visits providing specific, actionable feedback within 24 hours. For formal evaluations, I'd pre-conference to understand the teacher's goals and context, observe with a learning stance, and post-conference focusing on reflection and collaborative goal setting. For underperforming teachers, I'd first diagnose specific issues through multiple observations and data review. Then I'd create an improvement plan with clear, measurable goals and timelines. Support might include peer observations, instructional coaching, targeted professional development, or co-teaching opportunities. I'd increase observation frequency and provide written feedback documenting progress. I'd celebrate small wins while maintaining high expectations. If improvement doesn't occur despite support, I'd follow district procedures for formal remediation, always documenting thoroughly. Throughout, I'd maintain dignity and professionalism. Underperforming teachers often know they're struggling and need support, not shame. My goal is always teacher improvement because when teachers grow, students benefit. Even in cases requiring eventual dismissal, I'd ensure we've provided every opportunity for success. Question 5. How would you handle a situation where the school board makes a decision that you believe is detrimental to students? Sample answer. This tests professional integrity and diplomatic skills. First, I'd ensure I fully understand the decision and its rationale by seeking clarification from my principal and reviewing all available information. If I still have concerns, I'd work through proper channels discussing with my principal how we might implement the decision while mitigating potential negative impacts. I'd prepare data-driven feedback showing potential consequences and alternative solutions, presenting this respectfully through my principal to district leadership. If the decision stands, I'd focus on implementation that best serves students within given parameters. I'd transparently communicate with staff, acknowledging challenges while maintaining professionalism, never undermining district leadership publicly. I'd document concerns and outcomes to inform future discussions. Throughout, I'd remember that board members are community-elected representatives making complex decisions with multiple considerations. My role is providing educational expertise and advocating for students while respecting the governance structure. If a decision truly violates ethical standards or legal requirements, I'd follow whistleblower procedures. However, most situations require finding creative ways to support students within given constraints while continuing professional advocacy for better policies. Question 6. Describe your experience with budget management and how you would handle budget cuts affecting programs. Sample answer. Budget management requires strategic thinking and stakeholder involvement. While I haven't managed entire school budgets, I've overseen department budgets and written grants, learning to maximize impact with limited resources. Facing budget cuts, I'd first protect core instruction and programs serving our neediest students. I'd analyze each program's impact using data, student outcomes, participation rates, and alignment with school goals. I'd convene a budget committee including teachers, parents, and community members to ensure transparent decision-making. We'd explore creative solutions, combining similar programs for efficiency, seeking community partnerships for funding, or implementing fees for non-essential activities with scholarship options. I'd investigate all alternative funding sources: grants, business partnerships, and fundraising. If cuts are inevitable, I'd communicate transparently about the process and rationale, giving stakeholders time to adjust. I'd also document the impact of cuts to advocate for restored funding. Throughout, I'd maintain focus on our mission. Some expensive programs might have less impact than cost-effective alternatives. The goal is strategic resource allocation that maximizes student success despite financial constraints. Every budget decision should answer, how does this best serve our students? Question 7. How would you support LGBTQ+ students and ensure an inclusive environment for all? Sample answer. Creating an inclusive environment for LGBTQ+ students is both a moral imperative and educational necessity. I'd start by ensuring our policies explicitly protect students from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. I'd work with counselors to establish safe spaces like gay-straight alliances where students find support and community. Professional development would address unconscious bias and inclusive practices using preferred pronouns, avoiding heteronormative assumptions, and intervening in harassment. I'd review curriculum for LGBTQ+ representation and work with teachers to include diverse perspectives appropriately. For facilities, I'd advocate for gender-neutral bathroom options and inclusive dress code policies. I'd partner with local LGBTQ+ organizations for resources and support services. When incidents occur, I'd respond swiftly and seriously, using restorative practices to educate while maintaining safety. I'd also support staff members who are LGBTQ+ allies or community members themselves. Communication with families would emphasize that supporting all students doesn't require agreeing with all lifestyles, it requires treating everyone with dignity. Through visible support and consistent policies, we create environments where all students can focus on learning rather than hiding who they are. Question 8. What strategies would you use to reduce teacher turnover and improve retention? Sample answer. Teacher retention requires addressing both workplace conditions and professional satisfaction. I'd start by conducting exit interviews and stay conversations to understand why teachers leave and why they stay. Common issues include workload, support, and feeling valued. To address workload, I'd streamline meetings, reduce unnecessary paperwork, and protect planning time. I'd advocate for competitive compensation while creating non-monetary incentives, public recognition, leadership opportunities, and professional development funding. For new teacher support, I'd implement robust mentorship programs and gradual responsibility increase. I'd foster collaboration through common planning time and professional learning communities where teachers share successes and challenges. Regular check-ins would help identify struggling teachers before they decide to leave. I'd create a positive culture by celebrating successes, maintaining open communication, and involving teachers in decision-making. When teachers raise concerns, I'd respond promptly and visibly, showing their voices matter. I'd also address student behavior issues systematically, so teachers feel supported in maintaining classroom management. Work-life balance initiatives might include coverage for personal appointments or family-friendly event scheduling. Ultimately, teachers stay where they feel valued, supported, and effective. My role is creating conditions where talented educators want to build careers. Question 9. How would you implement restorative justice practices while maintaining school safety and accountability? Sample answer. Restorative justice and accountability aren't opposing forces, they work together for lasting behavioral change. I'd implement restorative practices as supplements, not replacements, for traditional discipline when appropriate. The approach would be tiered. Minor conflicts might use peer mediation or restorative circles, while serious safety violations require immediate traditional consequences followed by restorative processes. I'd train staff in restorative questioning techniques and circle facilitation. For implementation, I'd start with willing teachers piloting classroom circles for community building, then expand based on success. When discipline issues arise, I'd assess whether restorative approaches are appropriate considering severity, safety, and participant willingness. A typical process might include the harm doer acknowledging impact, hearing from affected parties, and developing an action plan for repair and prevention. This occurs alongside appropriate consequences like detention or suspension. I'd track data comparing recidivism rates between traditional and restorative approaches, adjusting based on effectiveness. Parent communication would emphasize that restorative justice means higher accountability, not less. Students must face those they've harmed and actively repair damage. Success looks like reduced repeat offenses, improved school climate, and students learning empathy and problem-solving skills that prevent future conflicts. Question 10. How would you handle a situation where you discover a teacher is using inappropriate teaching methods or materials? Sample answer. This requires immediate action balanced with due process. Upon discovery, I'd first ensure student safety. If materials are harmful or methods abusive, I'd remove the teacher from the classroom immediately pending investigation. For less severe cases, I document what I observed and schedule an immediate meeting with the teacher. I'd approach with curiosity first. Perhaps there's context I'm missing or misunderstanding. During our conversation, I'd clearly explain why the methods or materials are inappropriate, referencing specific policies or pedagogical standards. I'd require immediate cessation and removal of inappropriate materials. Depending on severity and intent, consequences might range from coaching and professional development to formal disciplinary action. I'd increase classroom observations and require lesson plan submission until trust is rebuilt. I'd also communicate with affected students' parents if necessary, taking responsibility for oversight while outlining corrective actions. Throughout, I'd document everything thoroughly. This situation also prompts reflection. How did this go unnoticed? Do we need clearer guidelines or more frequent observations? The goal is protecting students while helping teachers understand and meet professional standards. Even experienced teachers sometimes need guidance about changing standards or emerging issues. Question 11. What's your philosophy on homework, and how would you address conflicting views between teachers and parents? Sample answer. Homework should reinforce learning without overwhelming families or widening equity gaps. My philosophy emphasizes quality over quantity. Purposeful practice that students can complete independently, respecting that family time and extracurricular activities also contribute to development. When conflicts arise between teachers and parents, I'd facilitate understanding from both perspectives. I'd convene stakeholder meetings to develop school-wide homework guidelines based on research and community input. These might include time limits by grade level, no homework over breaks, and ensuring assignments don't require parent expertise or resources not all families possess. For individual conflicts, I'd mediate conversations, helping teachers articulate homework's learning purpose while understanding family constraints. Solutions might include modified assignments, extended deadlines, or after-school homework support. I'd encourage teachers to regularly evaluate homework effectiveness. Is it improving learning outcomes? I'd also address equity by ensuring students have necessary resources through homework clubs, device lending, or partnerships with community centers. Communication is key. Clear homework policies in student handbooks, regular parent education about supporting without doing homework, and teacher flexibility for family circumstances. The goal is homework that enhances learning while respecting diverse family situations and promoting student well-being. Question 12. How would you promote professional learning communities, PLCs, that actually impact student achievement? Sample answer. Effective PLCs require structure, accountability, and genuine collaboration focused on student learning. I'd start by establishing clear norms and protocols. PLCs aren't venting sessions or planning periods but data-driven collaboration. Each PLC would follow a cycle: analyzing student data, identifying needs, planning interventions, implementing strategies, and assessing impact. I'd provide release time for meaningful collaboration and protect this time from other duties. Initial training would cover effective PLC practices, data analysis protocols, and constructive conversation techniques. I'd rotate through PLCs regularly, not to supervise but to support, ask probing questions, and celebrate successes. PLCs would maintain action logs documenting decisions and commitments, with accountability check-ins. I'd differentiate support. Struggling PLCs might need more structure while high-functioning ones get more autonomy. To ensure impact, PLCs would present quarterly to the full faculty, sharing successful strategies and student growth data. This cross-pollination spreads effective practices school-wide. I'd also connect PLC goals to school improvement plans and individual teacher goals, creating alignment. Success indicators include improved student outcomes, teachers seeking colleagues' expertise, and conversations shifting from what we taught to what students learned. Question 13. Describe how you would lead the implementation of a new curriculum while managing teacher resistance and parent concerns. Sample answer. Successful curriculum implementation requires strategic change management addressing all stakeholder concerns. Before implementation, I'd form a curriculum leadership team including teacher representatives from each grade, department, ensuring buy-in from influential staff members. We'd thoroughly review the curriculum, identifying strengths and potential challenges. For teachers, I'd provide extensive professional development before expecting implementation, not just what to teach but why this curriculum improves student learning. I'd arrange for teachers to observe successful implementation at other schools or through videos. Phased rollout allows adjustment, perhaps starting with willing early adopters who can model success. For resistant teachers, I'd listen to specific concerns and address them individually while maintaining clear expectations. Parent communication would begin early, explaining the research base, expected benefits, and implementation timeline. I'd host curriculum nights where parents experience sample lessons and understand how to support at home. Regular updates would share early successes and address emerging concerns. Throughout implementation, I'd collect feedback through surveys, classroom observations, and student data, making adjustments while maintaining curriculum integrity. Success requires patience. Full implementation typically takes 2-3 years. By approaching change collaboratively while maintaining clear vision, we can navigate resistance toward improved student outcomes. Question 14. How would you handle discovering potential test cheating by students or staff? Sample answer. Test integrity is fundamental to educational validity and must be addressed seriously yet fairly. Upon discovering potential cheating, I'd immediately secure all evidence and document initial observations. For student cheating, I'd investigate thoroughly, interviewing involved students separately, reviewing test materials, and examining patterns. If confirmed, consequences would follow school policy while using it as a learning opportunity about integrity. I'd also examine systemic issues. Are we creating unhealthy pressure? Do students understand academic honesty? For staff cheating, the stakes are higher. I'd immediately involve my principal and follow district protocols, which likely include removing the staff member from testing duties pending investigation. I'd cooperate fully with any district or state investigation while maintaining confidentiality. If allegations are substantiated, consequences might range from retraining to termination, depending on severity and intent. Either way, I'd examine our testing procedures for vulnerabilities, better proctoring protocols, secure material handling, and clear communication about expectations. I'd also address underlying causes. If teachers feel extreme pressure for test scores, we need cultural change emphasizing authentic learning over test performance. Rebuilding trust requires transparency about actions taken and systematic improvements preventing future incidents. Question 15. As demographics in schools rapidly change, how would you ensure your leadership style adapts to serve an increasingly diverse student population? Sample answer. Adaptive leadership in changing demographics requires cultural humility and continuous learning. I'd start by examining my own biases and cultural lens through professional development and self-reflection. I'd actively seek to understand our changing community through data analysis, community walks, and listening sessions with various cultural groups. My leadership team would reflect our diversity, ensuring multiple perspectives in decision-making. I'd prioritize hiring staff reflecting student demographics and providing all staff cultural competency training beyond surface-level diversity workshops. Curriculum and resources would be audited for cultural representation and relevance. I'd establish partnerships with community cultural organizations to bridge school and home cultures. Communication would adapt to family needs translations, cultural liaisons, and meetings at community centers. For students, I'd ensure multiple pathways to success recognizing different cultural values around education. Discipline policies would be examined for cultural bias, implementing restorative practices respecting different conflict resolution styles. I'd regularly disaggregate data by demographic groups, addressing any disparities quickly. Most importantly, I'd model inclusive leadership pronoun. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more videos like this. Share your thoughts and any additional questions you might have in the comments below.